Hi everyone, welcome to the first episode in my new series on the films of David Lynch. As I mentioned in the intro, there is a YouTuber who was called Zaco263 who was planning to do a possible David Lynch series before his channel disappeared. And I was really looking forward to seeing that because he's a very smart guy and I wanted to know what he thought of all those films. But since he doesn't seem to be making videos anymore, I thought, well, you know what, I want to do a David Lynch series of my own then. So I'm going to be going through each of his films one at a time and watching them and then making a video talking about them. And I am tempted, very tempted, to go on Wikipedia and go on fan sites to find out what all the interpretations of his movies are, because oftentimes they can be very abstract. But I've decided not to do this, just to basically give my own impressions of the film, trying not to take other people's views on it into account too much. Maybe a little. Eraserhead was the first feature film that David Lynch completed. As he describes in a special feature on the disc, him getting a grant from the American Film Institute and going to a film school in California. He is originally from Pittsburgh, I believe. And taking a few years to prepare the film and cast it and just get the resources to make it. As I recall, he spent a few years shooting it off and on, in much the same way that Christopher Nolan took a few years to shoot his first film, Following, which is also in black and white. But to hear him tell it, this special feature on the disc basically is him sitting in a recording booth, talking to a microphone, reminiscing about making the film. And he didn't seem to have a lot of trouble making it. It took a while, but he was able to get the equipment and materials that he needed, props. He found actors fairly easily. So it's just a matter of getting through the production itself. This movie bears a lot of distinctive qualities of David Lynch's films that would come later on. It's a very moody film. It's dark. There are lots of awkward conversations. There's long stretches where there's no dialogue at all. And the sound design is very oppressive as well. It takes place in this sort of industrial section of a city, inspired apparently by Pittsburgh, in which there's this constant background noise of this rumbling and this din, this equipment, what have you. The main character is Henry. He's played by Jack Nance, who went on to appear in a number of David Lynch's films. He has small roles in Dune and Lost Highway and a few others. He's sort of the Richard Dreyfuss to David Lynch's Spielberg, I think. I guess, I don't know if that's the best analogy, but anyway, Henry, the character, is this guy who works for a printer. At least he says he does. He says he's on vacation, which means he's probably laid off in reality. He lives in this tiny little dank, dirty apartment, which seems to have a lot of mulch and just it's just generally this very small, cramped little space. One room with a bed in it and a dresser and a bathroom and lots of piles of mulch sitting everywhere. There's even a plant on the nightstand next to his bed that has no pot. It's just sitting there in a mound of dirt. Very strange. But in the opening scenes of the film, he gets a message from a girl that he knows named Mary. Please come to dinner with my parents. So he goes and he learns that Mary has just had a baby and they are all saying that he's the father, and so he has to marry Mary and take responsibility for her and this child, which was premature and looks like basically the head of a lizard with a bunch of organs wrapped in an ace bandage for a body. It's a very disgusting, creepy little thing. So Henry agrees. He is a rather withdrawn and not very aggressive, assertive person, so he doesn't put up much of a fight. So it's the two of them cramped in this little bed in this tiny little apartment with their baby, so-called, sitting on the dresser, crying and wailing all night long. Yeah, it's not a happy experience overall, not a happy experience. So the whole storyline basically deals with him dealing with this change in his life and how Mary's going to react and how she, acts like she really doesn't want to be there very much at all. There's a number of dream sequences in this movie. David Lynch is very big on dream sequences. They're in a lot of his movies. There's considerable dream sequences in this film, one of which I believe is about 13 minutes long. And there's a point in which it looks like you're back to reality, but in fact the dream is continuing because more surreal stuff keeps happening. The opening of this movie is like 10 minutes of no dialogue. before someone actually says anything. Remember, he goes to his apartment building and steps in the elevator and then waits and waits and waits for the doors to close, which is kind of a funny moment. A friend of mine and I were talking about how you could coin a new term, say that the doors took an Eraserhead to close, you know, a really long time. And as far as I can tell, there's no dialogue for like the whole last 16 minutes of the film before the credits start. But one of the things that I wanted to avoid, like I said, is interpretations, other people's interpretations of the movie. I wanted to just sort of go into it and just sort of clear my head and just see if I could discern any meaning, rather than going online to Wikipedia and a whole bunch of fan sites and do sort of a book report. There's a character who is called the Lady in the Radiator, and she's this kind of sweet, smiling blonde girl with enormously puffed up cheeks. You know, at first I thought maybe she might be the grown-up version. Again, this is Henry's dream character, so but she looks relatively normal. But I'm thinking now, because they refer to the baby as he, I don't know how they can tell if it's a he or not, but because she looks relatively normal, she might be a potential daughter for Henry at some point in the future. The daughter that he might have one day. She might also be someone who is discouraging Henry from having children at all. She may be discouraging everyone from having children, who knows? It's kind of hard to say, but she spends some time destroying sperm. That's at the end, she seems very pleased. I'm not going to get into what happens at the end, but she seems very pleased by what Henry has done. So this leads me to believe that she is anti-procreation. She is against the idea of procreation, at least in Henry's case. There's a segment, the title of the movie comes from a segment in which Henry is dreaming that his head has come off and that his head is taken to a shop where his brain is excavated for eraser material, pencil eraser material. Yeah, there's a lot of very strange things happening there. The opening scene is this odd sequence where there's this strange-looking guy sitting in a booth with controlling levers, launching sperm. Henry's head is superimposed over this planet. You know, there's a whole bunch of just rather inexplicable things happening in this movie. And David Lynch is pretty strongly against explaining all this stuff. As far as I know, he's never done a DVD commentary. He will talking about what it's like to make a movie, but he won't talk about what the movie itself means. That sort of puts him in the realm, I think, of abstract artists. It's like saying, take your own meaning from this, you know. So I don't know what to think of it. You know, I generally enjoy the movie. In fact, I think I'm going to watch it again before I return it to the shop I rented it from. Yeah, there's many things that happen in this movie and a lot of other David Lynch movies that I just don't understand, you know, what's going on here, what it's supposed to mean, if anything. I'm sure it means something. But as a question of what, it just seems a lot at the time like it's just surreality for the sake of surreality, if that's even a word. Anyway, those are my thoughts on Eraserhead. I forgot to mention the leading lady in this movie is Charlotte Stewart, the girl who plays Mary. And according to her IMDb page, she also played a major character in Tremors, and she was the character of Betty Briggs in the Twin Peaks series, so she went on to do that with David Lynch as well. Thanks very much for watching. This is my first of the David Lynch videos, and I'll be doing each of the films in turn, including a video on Twin Peaks. And if you have any opinion at all on Eraserhead and want to share it, leave me a comment. I'd love to hear from you. Thanks very much for watching. Take it easy. Bye.